A party takes a brutal turn when the uninvited guests turn out to be a pack of bloodthirsty vampires hunting humans for sport. But the strangest part is that they can't step inside unless someone invites them in. What begins as a night of dancing and celebration quickly turns into a terrifying fight for survival, as an ancient evil reveals itself and turns the party into a nightmare soaked in blood. Story begins early in the morning. A boy named Sammy appears outside his father's church. It seems as if he has just returned from a long and exhausting night, but there are deep claw marks on his face. It all started one day earlier when his older cousins, Smoke and Stack, returned to their hometown after many years away. The two brothers planned to transform an old sawmill into a juke joint and were busy making preparations for it. Their goal was to create a place in Clarksdale where people could come together and enjoy music. However, there were obstacles standing in their way. It was Mississippi in 1932, and during that time, black people faced countless hardships and discrimination. In particular, a powerful landowner named Hogwood seemed opposed to their plan. But when Smoke and Stack showed him that they had brought enough money to fund the project, his attitude changed, and he became willing to do business with them. At the same time, an important opportunity was approaching for Sammy as well, because he was going to play the guitar at the grand opening of the juke joint. He greatly admired his two cousins because they had achieved considerable success in Chicago. But Smoke explained to him that in reality, they faced almost the same problems everywhere they went. That was the reason the two brothers had ultimately decided to return to their hometown. There was still a lot of work left to do before the party could begin. With little time remaining, Smoke drove into town in a truck to pick up the necessary supplies. Meanwhile, Sammy went out with his cousin Stack because they had another important responsibility. They needed to gather musicians so the band could be put back together for the opening celebration. While Stack was skilled at planning and handling business matters, Smoke was a man of strength and action. His experiences on the battlefields had prepared him to deal with all kinds of difficult situations. When he arrived in town, he noticed that it was more crowded than usual that day. He paid a local girl a few dollars to keep an eye on his truck. Only a few moments later, he heard the truck horn blaring continuously. He immediately rushed outside and saw two petty thieves trying to steal beer from his vehicle. Smoke instantly drew his gun and fired at one of them. When he looked more closely, he realized that he actually knew both men. The thieves immediately understood their mistake and began apologizing because they realized they had picked a fight with the wrong people. But Smoke was not moved by their apologies. He wanted to make sure that no one would ever dare attempt something like this against them again. So he shot the second man as well, leaving him wounded. Smoke knew that he could not allow any rumors of weakness or helplessness about himself and his brother to spread among the people. Smoke goes back inside the store and gives some money to his close friend Bo Chow, the shop owner, so that he can arrange treatment for the two injured men whom Smoke had just shot. The food and drinks for tonight's event had already been arranged, but one important thing was still missing. They needed a signboard for their juke joint to give the grand opening a proper and official appearance. Bo Chow's wife, Grace, agrees to make the sign for them. In another part of town, Sammy and Stack arrive at the train station as their first stop, where they meet the famous local musician Delta Slim. Delta Slim knew that his time was valuable, so convincing him to leave his regular nightclub job and perform at the twins' juke joint was not going to be easy. After a lengthy discussion, Stack and Sammy offer him double pay, along with a supply of genuine Irish beer. Eventually, Delta Slim accepts their offer and agrees to perform at the event that night. A short while later, he is playing music alongside Sammy. Their chemistry is so natural that it seems as though they have been performing together for years. Gradually, a crowd gathers around them and begins enjoying their music. Taking advantage of the moment, Stack announces to everyone that the new juke joint, located in the old sawmill, will be hosting music, drinks, entertainment, and various other activities that evening, and he invites everyone to attend. Before leaving, Sammy notices a woman he has seen before. He introduces himself to her. Her name is Perline, a well-known singer in the area. Unfortunately, Perline is already married, but despite that, Sammy still tries to strike up a conversation with her. Meanwhile, Stack's charisma and reputation also make him the center of unwanted attention. At that moment, his former lover Mary appears before him. Mary is still deeply upset with him because after leaving for the war, Stack completely cut off contact with her. At first, Stack tries to pretend that their relationship had never been that serious, but in reality he still harbors strong feelings for Mary, even though he refuses to show them. Afterward, they arrive at a cotton field where their old friend Cornbread is working hard to complete his daily quota. Cornbread is a respected figure in the community, and Smoke and Stack want him to take charge of security at the entrance of the juke joint that night. Stack uses his charm and persuasive skills, and it doesn't take long before Cornbread agrees to become part of their plan. Smoke also had a personal matter in town that he had been avoiding for many years. After finishing his business in town, he goes to visit his estranged wife, Annie, whom he has not spoken to for several years. The distance between them had begun after the tragic death of their young daughter. That heartbreaking loss changed Smoke from the inside. He lost faith in almost everything and became focused solely on gaining wealth and power. On the other hand, Annie remained devoted to her traditions and beliefs. She firmly believed that her prayers had always protected both Smoke and Stack. Smoke knew that he had made many mistakes in the past. Although admitting it was not easy for him, he finally gathers the courage to apologize to Annie. At the same time, at a small farmhouse on the outskirts of town, a mysterious man suddenly appears. He is in terrible condition, as though he has barely survived some unimaginable ordeal. Constantly looking over his shoulder, he stumbles toward the house. His back is covered in painful blisters, and the sunlight is badly scorching his skin. As soon as he reaches a shaded area, his condition improves slightly. He then tells the husband and wife living there that a group of Choctaw hunters is pursuing him. He begs them for shelter and offers them gold coins in return, hoping they will protect him from those who are hunting him down. A few minutes later, the hunters arrive there as well. Their leader tries to warn Joan that they do not have much time and that she should be extremely cautious of the stranger. However, Joan does not take his warning seriously and tells him to leave. As evening approaches, the hunters hurriedly depart before sunset. But after they leave, the situation begins to take a strange turn. When Joan goes back inside the house, she cannot find her husband anywhere. The entire home is unnaturally silent. The only sound is the creaking of a rocking chair as it scrapes against the wooden floor. Worried, she walks toward the back room to find out what has happened. When she gets there, she is confronted with a horrifying sight. The mysterious stranger is standing there with blood smeared around his mouth, while her husband lies face down on the floor. Suddenly, her husband rises to his feet again, but he is no longer the same man. His teeth have transformed into long, razor-sharp fangs. Joan screams in terror because the man standing before her has become a bloodthirsty creature, and now his attention is turning toward her. Meanwhile, the grand opening at the juke joint officially gets underway, but it does not take long before Smoke and Stack begin encountering problems. Smoke wants the bar to accept only real cash payments, but many of the guests want to pay using local plantation tokens commonly used in the farms and fields. Stack sees things differently. In his opinion, if they truly want everyone to feel welcome, they have to accept those people as well. He advises his brother to be more flexible. At the same time, Mary arrives and starts looking for Stack. Upon seeing her, Sammy tries to escort her toward the door so that she will leave the event. However, he soon learns that Mary's mother had raised both Smoke and Stack like her own sons when they were children. Because of that, Mary's presence there is not unexpected at all. A short while later, Stack himself comes over to ask Mary to leave. But this time, he does not try to hide the truth. For the first time, he openly admits that he has always loved Mary. Even so, he wants to keep her away from him because he believes that, under the current circumstances, it is the only way to keep her safe. Meanwhile, Delta Slim has completely won over the crowd with his music. Now it is time for Sammy to show everyone what he can do. Delta Slim calls him onto the stage. Sammy takes hold of his guitar and begins performing a song that he wrote for his father. His music is so powerful and emotionally moving that the audience falls silent and becomes completely captivated. Gradually, more and more people begin joining in, and an extraordinary atmosphere fills the entire hall. It feels as though the music has erased the boundaries of time itself. Spiritually, Sammy's ancestors, from both the past and the future, seem to become part of the moment, joining the gathering through the power of music. But the people inside the hall are not the only ones sensing this extraordinary phenomenon. Outside, a vampire and his newly turned companions are also drawn to the powerful music and spiritual energy. They immediately recognize Sammy's remarkable gift. Before long, their leader decides that he wants to claim that power for himself. Meanwhile, Cornbread, standing guard at the entrance. As soon as he sees them heading toward the juke joint, he quickly sends word to Smoke and Stack. When the three strangers draw closer, their leader introduces himself as Remick. He claims that he and his companions are traveling musicians from North Carolina. In a very polite manner, Remick asks whether they may come inside and have something to eat. The people at the door take the matter seriously. They know that any decision in a situation like this could carry significant social consequences. Sensing their hesitation, Remick assures them that he has no intention of causing trouble. He even offers more money. At that moment, Smoke pulls out his weapon and firmly orders them to leave. However, as Remick departs, he says that he and his companions will remain by the roadside in case the hosts change their minds. After they leave, Stack argues that turning away such well-paying customers was not the right decision. Smoke, however, sees the situation differently. In his view, even if those strangers promise not to cause trouble, allowing them inside could still put everyone present at risk. Although the dance floor is packed and business appears to be thriving, another problem is becoming apparent. Most of the customers are paying with plantation credit and local tokens instead of real cash. At that rate, the business will not survive for long, and the twins could soon find themselves facing serious financial difficulties. Meanwhile, Mary discovers an important truth. She learns that Smoke and Stack did not acquire most of their wealth in Chicago through legal means. Instead, they built their fortune by stealing goods from various criminal organizations. That is why the success of this new business is so important to them. Mary believes that the strangers outside may trust her more, so she offers to find out exactly what they are willing to pay and what kind of offer they have. Despite his hesitation, Stack agrees. As a precaution, he hands Mary his pistol so she can defend herself if anything goes wrong. A short distance down the road, she finds Remick and his companion sitting on a fallen log, playing music together. Instead of showing ordinary American currency, Remick presents several pure gold coins. Seeing this immediately convinces Mary that there is something highly unusual about these people. At that moment, Remick's eyes begin glowing with a strange light, and he slowly starts leaning closer to her. Sensing danger, Mary instantly draws her weapon and warns him to stay back. But the moment she turns to head back toward the juke joint, Remick suddenly attacks her. The assault is so fast that Mary does not even have a chance to react. Before long, Mary also falls under the influence of these creatures. Now completely under their control, she returns to the juke joint without arousing any suspicion. Cornbread does not stop her because he knows her well. A little later, Delta Slim steps outside to get some fresh air. Around the same time, Cornbread asks him to watch the entrance while he briefly walks away. What he does not realize is that these are about to be the final moments of his life. He moves a short distance away and stands alone in the darkness when two glowing eyes suddenly appear behind him. Before he can understand what is happening or attempt to defend himself, he is attacked. Meanwhile, inside the juke joint, everyone is so absorbed in the music and celebration that nobody has any idea about the horrifying events unfolding outside. Mary quietly leads Stack away from the crowd to a secluded area. At the same time, Smoke sends Sammy to find his brother because a fight has broken out, and he needs Stack's help. But by the time Smoke and Sammy finally arrive, it is already too late. The moment they open the door, both of them freeze in horror. Before them, Mary is crouched over Stack, who is lying on the ground while she viciously tears at his throat. Seeing this, they immediately realize that something extremely dangerous and unnatural has happened. But Smoke gives her no chance. He immediately opens fire with both guns, unloading nearly all of his bullets into Mary's chest. The sound of gunfire echoes throughout the hall. Everyone at the gathering is terrified, and for a few moments, complete silence falls over the room. Then something astonishing happens. A few seconds later, Mary gets back on her feet. Laughing, she even avoids Smoke's final bullet and quickly disappears into the darkness outside. Smoke immediately rushes to his brother's side. He knows there is nothing that can be done to save Stack anymore. In those heartbreaking final moments, he tells his brother how much he loves him. Not long afterward, Stack succumbs to his severe injuries and dies. The sight is devastating for everyone present. Following Stack's death, Delta Slim quickly tells everyone that they should leave immediately and return to their homes. What he does not realize is that an even greater danger is waiting for them outside. Meanwhile, the people inside are still trying to understand what has just happened. Annie asks Sammy for more details. During their conversation, she learns that before attacking, Mary had said, "We will kill all of you." That single word, "we," proves extremely important to Annie. She becomes convinced that this was not an ordinary attack, but the work of a supernatural force. Her mind immediately turns to the possibility of an evil spirit or some demonic entity capable of controlling people. For that reason, she advises everyone that Stack's body should be moved outside the building before the situation becomes even worse. However, Smoke is still overwhelmed by grief over his brother's death. He refuses to let anyone go near Stack's body and rejects Annie's suggestion. The Chow family is also becoming increasingly worried. Grace tells her husband, Bo Chow, that perhaps it is time for them to leave and return to town because their daughter is surely waiting for them and growing concerned. Bo Chow agrees and heads outside to prepare the vehicle. What he does not know is that the bloodthirsty creatures are still lurking nearby. The moment he steps outside the building, his life is placed in grave danger. Meanwhile, because Smoke absolutely refuses to move Stack's body outside, Annie respectfully places his corpse inside a closet and asks Sammy to keep watch over it. At that moment, Cornbread suddenly returns. It is the first time anyone has seen him since he disappeared earlier. Strangely, he acts as though he has no idea about the horrifying events that have taken place inside, but Annie immediately senses that something is wrong with him. She quickly realizes that Cornbread is no longer the same person he once was. Another odd detail is that Cornbread never steps through the doorway. He remains standing on the threshold and makes no attempt to enter, as if something something is preventing him from crossing it on his own. Annie and the others soon notice this as well and become increasingly cautious. When Cornbread realizes that nobody is going to be fooled by his act, he appears ready to leave. Then he suddenly remembers something. He says that he still has not been paid for his work. As he says this, he stretches his hand through the doorway, reaching inside, while keeping the rest of his body outside the threshold. Although everyone else repeatedly warns Smoke not to trust Cornbread, Smoke reaches into his pocket and pulls out some money to pay him for his work. The moment he tries to hand over the cash, Cornbread suddenly grabs his arm and yanks him outside with tremendous force. In a split second, Smoke draws his weapon and fires directly into Cornbread's face. Despite being shot, Cornbread is not stopped immediately, while Smoke himself falls to the ground outside the building and finds himself in grave danger. Annie instantly rushes to help him and drags him back inside. At the same time, Cornbread moves forward to attack again, but Annie manages to slam the door shut just in time, leaving him trapped outside. Standing on the other side of the door, Cornbread glares at them with rage and frustration, while everyone inside becomes overwhelmed with fear and anxiety. But the nightmare is far from over. Suddenly, everyone hears knocking coming from inside the closet. It is Stack's voice. He calls out to his brother Smoke and asks to be let out. When no one responds to his requests, Stack grows angry and begins pounding on the closet door. A few moments later, he attacks it with such force that the door finally breaks apart. He bursts out and immediately throws himself onto Sammy. The situation is about to turn deadly, but Annie arrives at the last possible second. She grabs a jar of pickled garlic and smashes it directly into Stack's face. The instant the garlic touches him, Stack screams in agony and staggers backward. At that moment, Annie finally understands the entire truth. She tells everyone that Remick and his companions are vampires and that they are responsible for everything that has happened. Meanwhile, Grace wants to go outside to search for her husband, Bo Chow, but the others stop her. They believe that if she leaves now, she may never return alive. Eventually, they convince her to remain inside the juke joint with everyone else until sunrise. Annie now takes charge of the situation. She instructs everyone to gather anything in the building that could potentially be used against vampires. She also explains that there are only two reliable ways to destroy a vampire completely: expose it to sunlight or drive a sharpened wooden stake through its heart. Smoke anxiously asks whether killing Remick might return Stack to normal, but Annie tells him that it is already too late. Once a person has been turned, there is no way to restore them to who they were before. According to her, every infected person will have to be dealt with individually. While everyone continues searching the building for useful supplies, Perline discovers a body that nobody had previously noticed. The moment they see it, they immediately carry it outside so that if the person turns into a vampire, he will not endanger the others. But after this discovery, a new fear begins to spread among the survivors. They start wondering whether a vampire might already be hiding among them. To solve the problem, Annie comes up with a plan. She takes out a piece of garlic and asks everyone to eat someone by one. Everyone passes the test without issue, but when Delta Slim's turn arrives, the situation changes. The moment the garlic enters his mouth, he begins coughing violently, causing everyone to suspect him for a few tense seconds. However, after a short while, he regains control and explains that his stomach is probably upset because he drank too much alcohol earlier that day. His explanation only leaves everyone more confused, and they can no longer tell whether their suspicions were justified. Later, they return to the place where the body had been found. Once there, they realize that what they had assumed was blood on the floor is actually spilled liquor. The truth is that the man was not dead at all. He had simply passed out from being drunk. At that very moment, the man wakes up outside and begins begging the people inside to open the door. Once everyone is convinced that he is alive, they unlock the entrance. But the moment he starts coming inside, Cornbread suddenly attacks and sinks his sharp fangs into the man's throat. At the same time, Grace's husband, Bo Chow, emerges from the darkness. He calls out to Grace and tells her that it is time to come home, but the people inside know that he is no longer the same Bo Chow. Remick finally steps forward himself. He tries to assure everyone that if they allow him inside, they can all live together peacefully. However, if they continue refusing him, he says that he and his followers will go after Grace's daughter, who is completely alone at the grocery store. Remick then offers them another alternative. He explains that he has no interest in any of the other people inside. The only person he truly wants is Sammy, and the extraordinary ability that allows him to connect with the spiritual world through his music. Remick has existed as one of the undead for a very long time. He is consumed by loneliness and longs to reconnect with his ancestors. He believes that Sammy's gift can make that possible. Because of this, he proposes a deal. He promises that if they hand Sammy over to him, everyone else will be allowed to leave alive. But Sammy's friends and companions reject the offer immediately. To them, death is preferable to surrendering Sammy to those monsters. At the same time, Remick turns his attention towards Smoke and reveals another bitter truth. He tells him that the juke joint had been doomed from the very beginning. According to Remick, Hogwood and his racist associates were simply waiting for morning so they could murder Smoke and Stack and steal all of their money. The revelation shakes Smoke to his core. But before despair can push him into making a reckless decision, the others pull him back inside and end any further negotiations with the vampires. Now Smoke is mentally overwhelmed. He begins to fear that as time passes, someone's resolve will eventually break and they may agree to Remick's offer. Meanwhile, Grace reaches a decision of her own. She is no longer willing to wait. In her eyes, if they remain passive, the vampires will become a threat not only to her daughter, but to everyone in the surrounding area. She demands that Smoke and the others stop waiting and fight the bloodthirsty creatures immediately. However, the rest of the group still wants to hold out until sunrise. In the middle of this argument, a strange sound suddenly echoes from outside. All the vampires begin singing together, their voices blending into a haunting and unsettling chorus. Hearing her husband's voice among them, Grace desperately tries to cover her ears. But the terrifying part is that she can still hear the singing inside her mind. The experience becomes unbearable for her. Eventually, she loses control. She grabs a sharpened wooden stake from the table and starts walking toward the door. Smoke immediately realizes what she is about to do and rushes to stop her, but Grace bites his hand and loudly grants the vampires permission to enter. In that instant, the entire situation spirals out of control. Everyone prepares for battle. Moments later, Remick opens the door and steps inside. Grace immediately hurls a Molotov cocktail at him. However, Remick effortlessly knocks it aside. At the same time, dozens of vampires begin flooding into the building. Grace charges directly at her husband, Bo Chow. She shoves him into the flames and drives a wooden stake through his heart. Bo Chow is destroyed, but in the chaos, Grace is caught by the fire herself. Her friends try to save her, but they fail, and she burns to death in the flames. Meanwhile, Annie splashes garlic-infused water onto Remick. The attack reveals something important. She notices that the pain inflicted on Remick is also being felt by the other vampires. At that exact moment, Stack attacks her. He knocks Annie to the ground and sinks his fangs into her neck. Perline reacts instantly, firing a shot at Stack and forcing him to retreat. But it is already too late to save Annie. Smoke rushes to his wife's side. He knows that if Annie remains alive, she will soon become a vampire herself. Despite his shattered heart, he tells his wife that he loves her one final time. Then, with trembling hands, he picks up a wooden stake and drives it through Annie's heart. After Annie's death, Smoke stands frozen in shock. Delta Slim snaps him back to reality and begins leading the remaining survivors toward the upper floor. He orders everyone to run immediately. Then he chooses to stay behind and face the vampires alone. Delta Slim deliberately draws their attention to himself so the others can reach safety. The vampires swarm him while his companions manage to escape, but the danger is far from over. As soon as the survivors reach the upper floor, Remick and Stack smash through the door and force their way inside. Remick immediately begins hunting Sammy. At the same time, a deadly battle erupts between Smoke and Stack. Hearing his cousins calling out to him, Sammy tries to escape. He leaps through a second-floor doorway and lands hard before running toward the road despite his injuries, but he does not get very far. Without warning, Remick catches up to him, grabs him by the shoulder, and with tremendous force hurls him into a nearby lake. Meanwhile, inside the building, the fight between Smoke and Stack continues. Both men battle with everything they have until Stack finally gains the upper hand. He leans over Smoke and prepares to attack, but suddenly the protective charm Annie had given him gets in the way. That brief moment gives Smoke enough time to recover. At the same time, Remick becomes convinced that victory is finally his. But then Sammy suddenly begins reciting the Lord's Prayer out loud. His voice immediately captures Remick's attention. While talking, Sammy slowly makes his way toward his guitar. Then, without warning, he swings it with all his strength and smashes it into Remick's head. The impact is so powerful that part of the guitar's metal structure becomes deeply embedded in Remick's skull. The attack leaves him gravely wounded, but it is still not enough to destroy him completely. At the very last moment, Smoke rushes in from behind and drives a sharpened wooden stake straight through Remick's heart. A few moments later, the sun begins rising above the trees. As sunlight spreads across the area, all the remaining vampires burst into flames. Remick's body is consumed by fire as well, and quickly turns to ash. When the nightmare finally ends, only Smoke and Sammy remain alive. Smoke is relieved that Sammy survived. He makes his cousin promise that he will live a peaceful life from now on, and dedicate himself entirely to music. Sammy takes the car keys and heads toward his father's church, the very place where he was first seen at the beginning of the story. But Smoke still has one final task to complete. As morning arrives, Hogwood and his racist companions finally show up. They are convinced that killing Smoke will be easy. This time, however, the situation is very different. Smoke has already hidden himself and is waiting for them. Using a powerful rifle, he launches a surprise attack. His enemies do not even have time to react before they begin falling one by one. The remaining men try to escape, but Smoke throws a grenade toward their vehicle. The explosion completely destroys it. However, during the battle, Smoke is badly wounded as well. A little later, he finds Hogwood lying on the ground, severely injured. Smoke walks over to him and finishes him off. At that moment, he experiences a spiritual vision. He sees Annie standing before him alongside their young daughter, and both of them gesture for him to come with them. With a sense of peace, Smoke walks toward them. Meanwhile, Sammy never abandons his dream of music. Time passes, and nearly 60 years later, he has become a famous and elderly musician. One night after a performance, he is relaxing in his club when a doorman informs him that some visitors have paid to meet him. A few moments later, Sammy is stunned when he sees that the visitors are Stack and Mary. The truth is finally revealed. Stack was the one vampire Smoke never managed to destroy. He spared him on the condition that he would never harm Sammy. Now that Sammy has reached the final stage of his life, Stack and Mary have come to make him one last offer. They want Sammy to join them and gain eternal life. But Sammy refuses. He explains that he has lived a full and meaningful life and is completely satisfied with the life he has had. Hearing this, Stack changes his approach. He admits that over the decades, he and Mary have collected every one of Sammy's music albums and have become some of his biggest fans. Then Stack asks whether the old music still lives inside him. In response, Sammy shows them his father's guitar, now fully restored and in perfect condition. For one final time, he plays a melody for them. When the song ends, Sammy says goodbye to his cousin. But before they part ways, he asks Stack one final question. He asks whether he still remembers the night at Club Juke. After a few moments of silence, Stack replies that he could never forget that night. It was the last night he ever saw his brother Smoke. It was the last night he ever saw sunlight. And it was the last few hours when all of them were truly free. And with that, the story comes to an end.